I am a first generation college student from Brightwood Avenue in East Cleveland, Ohio. Neither my mother or father finished high school, so for them, graduating from college was the big deal. Didn't matter that it was Harvard. Personally, I came to Cambridge in order to get something and to give something and to grow without leaving too much of myself behind. Even though I was going away, I knew I still wanted to be able to go back home. I knew I belonged, but was not sure how others would accept me or if I really cared. I had an idea coming in as a freshman for how to make it feel a little bit like home. I asked for black roommates. I got one and two white guys. Since I was the last one who arrived in the dorm, they had already decided who got the best beds and decided what was my share of rent for the refrigerator. So I took over the common area and decorated with themed artwork, including a picture of Huey Newton. Nobody complained, at least not out loud, and I got to pick my afro out a little bit higher. Psychology was my major of choice, and law was my intended profession. I knew I could benefit from better understanding how people thought and felt and use that to be able to be a resource to them to make them more effective as leaders. And I assumed that as a lawyer, I would have an even bigger impact on making a difference and changes in organizations and communities and maybe even the world. Not all my psychology classes were welcoming. I had to endure Herrnstein insisting that blacks were intellectually inferior and why bother? Now, I added that to the number of times someone would say, you must have gotten into Harvard because of affirmative action. To which my usual response was, the point is, I got in. I could get something from understanding that psychological argument and where it was coming from. I could give back an emotional or intellectual counterpoint to that argument. But I was not going to limit my growth by forgetting what my mother told me that I could do and what others like me had already done. I knew I was young, gifted, and black, and I knew I was not alone. Now, I knew I was not just there for me, but on April 22nd, 1972, gave me more insight to how to make a difference beyond myself. Remember that day? Black students took over Mass Hall, the administration building. Harvard out of Gulf now. Portugal, Angola, napalm, Harvard investments in Gulf oil, a hunger strike called by the Harvard students until Harvard gave in to their demands. The strike called off when Harvard convinced the students it could actually make a bigger difference using its few shares to influence others. Now, perhaps that's an enduring point even today. I was disappointed, but I had an aha moment that the institutional change I imagined I might make as a lawyer was not really me. Just give me one-on-one opportunities as a psychologist working with leaders to make a difference. I had to work at Harvard. One of those jobs was at a community center in Dorchester, tutoring students. Took the red line from Harvard Square to Dorchester. Each station, my crimson color and shade at least changing. Each station taking me closer and closer to a neighborhood that was similar to the one I grew up in. I did it to tutor black students, to give them support. I did it to get reminders that something was expected of me with the gifts and privilege that I have. I could grow by giving, and the students would not let me forget how important it was to them that I looked like them, came from a neighborhood like theirs, and I was a Harvard student. Still, I knew I was taking the train from Dorchester back to Harvard Square. It was a long way from Brightwood. Now, while I did worry whether I would be able to go back home, I knew that that was primarily for me. I realized over the years that for others, I had given them something, and that something was far more significant than what Harvard did for me. It was what my coming here and graduating from here meant to others. When a young man I remembered from the neighborhood said to me, "You might not recall this, but you told me that I too could go to Harvard." And when a young woman I did not remember said, "You might not remember this, but or you might not have known this, but we were so proud of you going to Harvard." And with the inmate I worked with during my internship, who was from the same neighborhood, said, "You might want to spend more time with the young bloods than you spend with me because they need to know and see somebody who came from the neighborhood, got out, and went all the way to Harvard." Those are the reminders to me that Harvard changed me and changed others around me. From Brightwood to Cambridge, first generation family, first generation neighborhood, not just for me, not just for my family, for others and their possibilities.